Hi, it's Torode here with Leaderboard Coffee. I'm a two-time National Barista Champion and green coffee buyer for Forward Coffee, and also a barista and director of coffee at Rosso Coffee Roasters in Calgary, Alberta. I've been part of the coffee industry for probably close to 11 years now. I did my Q-Rater in 2011, I believe, maybe 2012. And I started buying coffee directly in 2015. I've been roasting since 2012, so lots of experience in roasting and sourcing coffee. And today I'm going to talk to you about identifying processing in coffee. I'm actually going to brew a coffee as we do this, and I'm going to brew a natural coffee from Colombia. So what does that mean, a natural coffee? In long and short of it, coffee is a fruit. So it's a cherry that grows on a tree, and inside that cherry, there's two seeds that kind of sit together like this. So each seed sort of has a little center cut on it, and there will be those two seeds sitting together with the center cuts facing one another. So a really easy way to identify different types of processing is just by simply looking at the beans themselves, or seeds as they technically are. So in my hand right now, I can tell this coffee here is a washed coffee versus this coffee here. And simply the reason for that is by looking at the center cut, I can see that it's much more pronounced and there's much more contrast on a washed coffee here in this hand versus a natural coffee here in this hand. And part of the reason for that is during the processing of a natural coffee, because all the fruit is left intact with the seeds to dry, there's a stage of fermentation that occurs where yeast begins to activate and start metabolizing sugars. So in that fermentation, because there's so much sugar content surrounding the seed, a lot of that starts to turn and will actually coat the center cut in a way that it becomes much darker in color and actually just sort of blends in with the rest of the seed. Where on a washed coffee, we're stripping away most of the sugars prior to the fermentation, when we're removing the fruit and the mucilage and a lot of the pulp. And in doing this, we're allowing a much sort of cleaner and less compromised potentially in the processing. That's maybe not quite the right way to say it, but it's allowing just the seeds to be alone in the process and in the fermentation. So leaving a much more distinct and apparent center cut through the bean. Now, natural and washed coffees are the two most common styles of processing that we'll find globally. However, there are also many other styles of processing, one of which is honey. And honey will be more akin to a natural coffee, where it's going to have a darker sort of center cut. And then we also have decaf, and decaf I think is an interesting conversation point in coffee, because I believe the majority of people that drink coffee are drinking it for caffeine and for the boost or the energy that they'll get in the morning. Now, when it comes to identifying decaf, this is a whole different ballgame. Now, decaf can either occur naturally in the genetics of the coffee. There's 4 parent species of coffee that are naturally occurring zero caffeine or very low in caffeine. There is also numerous different ways that we can modify the caffeine content in our coffee. So an example would be Swiss Water Decaf in Burnaby, BC, Canada. They use a a trademarked process that allows them to soak and essentially saturate green coffee using something called green coffee extract, and then by changing the way I understand it, by changing the intensity of the extract in their soaking tanks, they're able to actually balance out and then slowly expel caffeine from the green coffee itself. In doing so, they're also manipulating the cell structure of the coffee. So a decaf coffee seed, once roasted, is usually a lot darker in appearance, even though it can be the same color using a tool like an Eggtron or a color track to measure the roast degree, the hue of brown. So decaf often looks a lot darker, even though it's not a traditional dark roast. And a lot of specialty coffee roasters are really starting to focus on their decafs, which I love, because if you consider who is drinking decaf coffee, it's people that like the flavor of coffee, not people who are in it for the boost in the morning or to wake up. So when you're maybe shopping for a decaf, or you're at a cafe and ordering a decaf coffee, I would ask how it's decaffeinated. If it's something like Swiss water, or maybe a sugar cane or a mountain water process, I would definitely explore those options. Those are going to be decaf coffees that are probably going to be really sweet in flavor, probably really nice mouthfeel and balance on the palates. There are other forms of decaffeination that use really intense methods and gases and applied into the process itself that, frankly, I think are really unhealthy. So I would avoid anything that does not state the type of decaffeination process the coffee has undergone. And I think if you work in the industry, something that's so important, respect the decaf drinker. Again, this is the person that's drinking drinking coffee not for caffeine. This is the person we really, really want to encourage to continue exploring coffee, because, and leaderboards is an example of, let's explore coffee for the sheer purpose of palate development and flavor exploration, and see what the wonderful world of coffee can bring us. Decaf is in that. We need to respect the decaf drinker. Let's go decaf. Good luck with your leaderboard submissions here, people. And thanks so much for playing. I think it's an awesome initiative, and I'm so happy and so humbled to be part of the game. Good luck.